welcome to the Acting for Your Life podcast. This is Katherine Ziegler. Thanks so much for tuning in to Season 4. We are at the end of Season 4. We're so excited that you're here with us today, and thank you so much for celebrating 10 years of the Acting for Your Life program. That's right, we started in 2005 with workshops and classes in New York City. The program has since expanded to the podcast. Started the podcast about 4 years ago, and we have grown to over 75,000 listeners around the world. And we want to thank you for sharing the podcast like you've been doing and attending the workshops. We are just honored to have you a part of the program and to be a part of your process as you find balance in life and career. Well, today's special guest has a voice that you may or may not recognize when he's speaking about the work that he does, but you will most certainly recognize some of the characters that he's played. It's Bob Bergen, voiceover artist. Bob is an incredible voiceover artist, an amazing teacher. We actually met several years ago at a workshop here in Louisville, Kentucky, and he's here to share his story about how he has found balance in life and career with us here on the Acting for Your Life podcast. Hey, Bob, thanks for joining us. It sounds like you might have someone else in the studio with you today for Wise Words Wednesdays.
It's Wise Words Wednesday. I happen to have wise words.
Wise words.
I'll try.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. It's such an honor to have you on.
It's my pleasure.
We met actually through Louisville's International Festival of Film several years ago, and through our mutual friend Conrad Bachman. And I was fortunate enough to sit in on your workshop, and I was so inspired by your story and how you got into the entertainment industry, especially into voiceover. And I'd love for you to actually start the interview there and for you to share your story with our audience.
Oh my! Well, I was a kid growing up in the Midwest who wanted to be Porky Pig. It's really that simple. I was a 5-year-old kid who announced to my parents, "I'm going to be Porky Pig," and my mom said, "You can't be Porky Pig. You're Jewish." And I didn't quite understand what that meant because we were not the world's greatest Jews. My mom made bacon, which is not a great thing to eat when you want to be Porky Pig. So I was fortunate enough that my dad took a job in Los Angeles when I was 14, and I just picked up the phone, and I just called everything in the phone book that said cartoons or animation to learn how to get into this business. I phoned Mel Blanc at home. I recorded the conversation. It's on my website. It's illegal to do that. Kids don't do that at home, but I did. I crashed the recording session. I watched him work, realized, okay, he's still doing this. So I called Hanna-Barbera.
That's
and
fantastic.
They referred me to a guy named Dawes Butler, who was almost every voice that Mel Blanc wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I studied with Dawes. I studied with everybody that offered a voiceover class. I studied acting. I studied improv. And we got to high school. I got my first voiceover agent and, had the day jobs for about 5 years to feed myself and support myself. But, about 5 years after high school graduation, I was able to work full-time as an actor. And Mel Blanc passed away in '89, and I've been doing Porky since 1990. So in a nutshell, that's how I got into the business.
That's fantastic. And what I love to hear and what I love about your story is that you do talk about educating yourself, whether it's self-education or observation or making sure you connect with the right people or going to class, that there's always that constant craving for education. Is that something that's carried you through your entire career?
Sure, and it doesn't stop. I mean, every time I work for an amazing director who gives you that nugget of wow, you put that away. You've got a little compartment in the back of your head. And I've been teaching animation voiceover for 20-something years. And everything I teach, I wish I could take credit for, but it's all the people that I learned with and keep learning with that I, feed my students. But yeah, you're always learning, observing, and absorbing.
When did you know that you wanted to start teaching as well?
I never wanted to. I was doing a play, and in the bio it said I was a voiceover actor, and somebody knocked on my dressing room door and said, "I'm opening up a school. Do you want to teach voiceover?" And I said, "No, I don't." And then SAG asked me to teach at their summer conservatory, and I said, "What do you pay?" Mm-hmm. And they said, "Nothing." I said, "Great, I'll do it, because if I stink, then I won't feel guilty about taking money." So I did that for a while. And then I went back to this guy with the school, and I taught for him for about a year, and I've been on my own ever since.
Now, are you currently touring with the workshop? Do you tour that same workshop that I saw, or is that something that you offer on a regular basis?
I do. In LA, I do 3 8-week classes a year, and I tour around the country. I do weekend classes about maybe 2 to 4 times.
Yeah.
I just came back from Dallas. I did New York last fall. I go where I want to go. So it's basically, I'm like, oh, you know what? I've got family in Houston. I haven't been there in a while. Let's put together a class. So if anybody is interested in a class in their area, it's only animation. I don't teach commercial voiceover, but they can email me, and I'll pass them on to my producer. And yeah, it's fun. I love it.
What I think is really interesting, too, about the way that you teach is that I was never afraid, and the students in your class were never afraid to ask you questions, and that there was this sense of almost from the beginning of mentorship, and especially from the beginning of your story and hearing about the people that you worked with and that you've studied under. Mentoring folks seems to be also a big part of who you are and what you do. What kind of role has that played in your career, and how has having mentors and being a mentor yourself really supported what you do?
Well, Casey Kasem got me my first agent. He was a friend he wasn't a friend of my family. I had a friend who knew him, just a friend in common, and he went out of his way to introduce me to his agent, who happened to be the top agent in voiceover. And that's how I got my first agent. The voiceover industry is very, very generous. You're going to find, go to Facebook, you're going to be able to chat with Rob Paulson and Maurice LaMarche and Tara Strong and all the people that work today in animation that are very, very available to not just the fans, but the people who are interested in pursuing this. So, I was a volunteer Big Brother for 20-something years.
Oh, wow.
Being there for, whether it's your fellow actor or, in that case, a kid, it's something that was always very important to me.
Now, networking and connections, you're talking about Facebook and being able to reach out to people. You have also expanded your network, and you're doing some work with the Emmys. Am I right?
Well, I'm on the board of governors at the Television Academy. So, which I've been for the last 4 years. I've been active at the TV Academy for about 20, but I've been on the board for 4. Yeah.
And what kind of work do you do with the board?
Basically every discipline in television, performers, directors, musicians, choreographers, they each have 2 governors and an executive committee that work on their behalf at the TV Academy. So I am on the board of governors representing performers along with my co-governor, Lily Tomlin. So basically, we've got almost 2,000 actors at the TV Academy. Our job is to oversee their needs, be it rule changes for performing Emmys, offering events and panels and networking opportunities, etc. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work because they don't pay us. It's a volunteer thing, but it's a blast.
And again, here's this line I see through your career of education and also self-education and making sure you're taking the right opportunities, either they be paid or non-paid, that sort of thing, to propel you to where you want to get to in your career. And as we heard in the beginning, and as you heard me totally geek out when you did the Porky Pig, what other characters would people know your voice from, or what other characters have you enjoyed doing over the years?
Oh my goodness! Well, for Warner Brothers, I've done Marvin the Martian, Speedy Gonzales, Tweety. Right now, I've done this season Marvel's Avengers Assembled. I play Winter Soldier. I've done a lot of features, a lot of Pixar movies, Toy Story 2 and 3, Bugs Life. And I was a voice of Disney Channel for 5 years, the promo voice, with Luke Skywalker for all of LucasArts games. So it's a pretty varied career. I mean, Porky Pig is really just a teeny part of my career.
Yeah.
It's just very high profile, so people know the pig.
Well, do you have a favorite? I hate to ask this question. It sounds so generic, but do you have a favorite character, or is there one that, sticks with you over a certain period of time?
Oh, yeah, Porky. I mean, because I didn't realize that I had to do other things in this industry to get this character, to get this one job.
Yeah.
So, that was my goal as a kid, and I was able to achieve it. And, it's funny because the day that I booked that character, my parents took me out for dinner, and I was terribly depressed. My mom saw my face. I looked depressed, and she says, "What could you possibly be depressed about?" And I said, "Well, I'm under 25, and I just met my lifelong goal. Well, now what do I do?" And my mom says, you eat your dinner and count your blessings and enjoy this journey. And that's what you have to do. You have to love the journey. And by the way, this is my 25th year playing Porky.
Congratulations.
And I had to re-audition for it 4 times.
Wow.
Because I don't own the character. Warner Brothers does it. Anytime a new producer comes in or there's somebody who wants to do something different with these characters, they they don't necessarily want to do just because, or use somebody just because they have to.
Yeah.
So I re-audition, and fortunately, I've booked it each time. So I haven't had to in a while, but it'll happen again. That's showbiz.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that being showbiz, and especially with Acting for Your Life being such a big part of what we do, that balance of life and career, how do you find balance between your life and career? Because there's more to Bob Bergen, as we know, than just Porky Pig and all the characters that you've played. You've got a life at home as well. So how do you find that life and career balance?
Well, first of all, I think if you love what you do, the balance is automatically going to be there. And I had this conversation online today. It's funny you're asking this question, because one thing I tell my students is that if you do this for the money, you'll never feel satisfied. You'll never feel like it's enough. I mean, if you're like, oh my gosh, I'd just like to get a call back, you finally get the call back. Oh my God, I just want to get that job, you get the job. Oh my God, I just want to get double scale next time, you get double scale. And if you keep thinking that way, you're never going to feel fulfilled. I tell my students, you got to get a height in the mic. So I'm fortunate. I work in my home studio all day long. I love what I do. I really do dig what I do. How do I balance it? Well, I'm able to take it with me. So I choose to teach out of town because I like to travel, and I also like, paying it forward. But I pick places I want to go.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about 2 or 3 months ago in England, who asked if I'd come out to England to teach at Abbey Road Studios, and I'm like, twist my arm. So, you balance because you love what you do, and it all fits together. It's like a puzzle that fits together. But you also can't be defined by the career or the lack thereof, depending on how your year's going.
Sure. It's really funny that you say this, because I was trying to, my daughters are now very interested in entertainment, and I tell them, like I tell all of my students, if you can find anything else in the world that you would love to do, you might want to try that first. Do it, because it's so hard, and when I had quote unquote finally made it in New York, and I was performing on Broadway and doing a lot of concerts and that sort of thing, I was waiting for that feeling of making it, and I had missed my process, the entire process of making it. And so when I was finally there to what I thought was success, I didn't enjoy it, and it didn't make sense to me. And I really had to go back to the root of, why am I doing this? And it was because I was passionate about it. I think a lot of artists struggle with that. And especially, I think it's so refreshing to hear someone like yourself, who has been playing Porky now for 25 years. You had to re-audition for the part. It's not always guaranteed.
No, absolutely. And, every time I drive onto that lot at Warner Brothers to work, I think to myself, I'm like, look what I get to do. The kid with a bowl of Captain Crunch, who was 5 years old, watching these old cartoons, who said, I want to do that, I get to do it. That's pretty balanced.
Yeah. If you could give, and I don't want to call them bullet points, but if you could give just a little bit of advice to those folks out there that want to get specifically into the voiceover industry, where do they begin?
They begin in an acting class. It's acting. No matter how you slice it, it's acting, because whether it's a promo, a cartoon, a commercial, or you're doing a play on Broadway, you're making the audience believe you. So the mistake I see a lot of people making, and this is because of the Internet, because the Internet brought voiceover to anybody with a modem. And a $99 USB mic. People are just diving in to make money at it, and you can't. You got to do it because you love the craft, you love the journey, you love the acting. So become the world's greatest actor, then study voiceover. There's commercial voiceover throughout the country, animation primarily in Los Angeles. So if animation is your thing, you kind of got to go where the industry is. I tell my students that you'll get nowhere as an artist without taking a risk, and a risk comes one of 3 ways: creative, geographic, or financial. You got to take a risk with that copy. You got to take a risk with that character. As an actor, you got to take a risk. You can't be safe. You might have to reinvest in your career over and over again throughout your career, and you might have to move to where that industry is that you want to work at. But don't make excuses. Don't say, I can't because, well, then don't do it. Like you said, you can find something else that you love more, do it, because this is a business that it's not forgiving. There are no excuses. But it's also the most euphoric, wonderful, amazing industry on the planet if things are going well.
Yeah, very true. One last little bit before we wrap the podcast up today. I love hearing you talk about teaching and hearing you talk about your students. What's the most rewarding part for you of teaching?
Oh, watching them get it. Those light bulb moments.
Yeah.
Where they, you give them a nugget and they go running with it, or finding out a student got an agent.
Yeah.
Or this happened to me last year on a series. I got to work side by side with a former student on a series. That's really cool.
That's fantastic. Well, Bob, how can people find you? You said you had a website. What's your web address?
Website is bobbergen.com.
Okay.
And they can email me from that. I'm also on Facebook. If they want to find out where I'm teaching, there's a page called All Things Bob Bergen. Join that page. It advertises everywhere I'm teaching around the country.
Wonderful. Bob, thank you so much for being a part of the Acting for Your Life podcast today. We really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Bob Bergen. We want to thank him again for being a part of the Acting for Your Life podcast. If you're interested in listening to Bob's podcast in full, if you'd like to download it, and or if you'd like to listen to the other Acting for Your Life podcasts, especially our Wise Words Wednesday series, you can go to our website, acting4yourlife.com. That's acting4yourlife.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Acting for Your Life and follow us on Twitter at acting4yourlife. Thanks so much for tuning in. Now go out there and break some legs.